Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jane Yu. I'm a wedding and event planner based in Los Angeles, figuring out life and business one day at a time. On my channel, I take you through my perspective on all things planning, tips on how to plan your own event, and behind the scenes of real weddings and events that I work on. Thank you for watching this video, and if you like what you see, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about what a wedding planner does. There's a lot of different approaches to wedding planning, so I am going to really talk about my perspective and how I plan weddings. I am specifically talking about what we call a full planning and design package in the industry, which is a pretty standard package. It's typically the highest tier package a client can book. This means that the planner will be by the client's side from the beginning to the end of the planning. At UNS Events, we charge 10% of the full wedding budget, but we do have a minimum fee of about $10,000, give or take. Depending on where it is, it can go up to $12K for the minimum. This is how I price my package. There's a very wide range of packages and fees that people charge. For the minimum, this means that even if a wedding has a budget of $50,000, the minimum a client would have to pay me for my fee is around $10,000. There are clients who do pay this fee and find it worth it, even if their wedding budget is a little more modest. This is what works for my business currently because we're still sort of in the growing stage of the business, but I have heard that 12 to 15% of the wedding budget is pretty standard, but we'll see what happens in the coming years. Just to give you some context about my background, I've been planning events for over 10 years. The beginning of my experience in event planning was really in experiential marketing, essentially brands activating events to interact with consumers, and whether it's a product launch or a movie premiere or a series premiere, activating a sponsorship space at a music festival, it can be a variety of things, but it essentially is designed to market to the consumer. Did that at a marketing agency for 6 years or so, and after that I left to freelance for other agencies and production companies. But in 2019, after John and I got married, we decided we wanted to strike out on our own and start our own business. So we both quit our jobs and we started our own wedding and event company. Now for me, I want to do more weddings now because I had been doing them on the side since 2012. Even while I was working my full-time job, I would work on friends of friends weddings or friends weddings, and I would maybe do 2 to 4 a year. So I've worked on a lot of weddings in different capacities. I just find them so much more enjoyable to work on. There's usually a longer lead time for planning, whereas for marketing events, it can be as short as 4 weeks. And even if you have a little bit longer, the turnaround time just feels really stressful. So after a while, I just wanted to transition more over to weddings and social events because it's a happier space for me. And I love having a personal relationship with my clients. And a lot of times I do stay in contact with them, and just as they have life milestones like having their babies and families and things like that. And that's something that I really care about. When clients book my full planning and design package, there's 4 things I really want to do for them. It's less about what I'm exactly doing day to day, but more about the top line overview of what I'm handling for them. So the first thing is I really am a project manager. I help them stay organized, keep on track of things, make sure they're, all of the things are getting planned according to the timeline, that they're making the decisions that they need to be making. Secondly, I try my best to keep the client's stress and overwhelm to a minimum. Many of you might know, if you've started the wedding planning process, it's really overwhelming to get all of this information from venues and vendors and not know how to decipher it all because everyone presents information differently. So my job is to really streamline everything and organize everything so that it's digestible for the client and they're able to make informed decisions with a clear head and not, because they are forced to make a decision quickly. My goal is to really help them stay as stress-free as possible. Of course, things are going to get stressful. It's a big day. There's a lot of money being spent. There's family involved and emotions are running high. It's all about how you're working with your partner as well. A lot of times my role also is to just be a sounding board or lend an ear to the client to make sure they know they have support throughout the planning process. The third thing that's really important is helping the client bring their creative vision to life, and this is really the design portion of the package. When we say design, I am not a designer in the sense of I'm not a graphic designer. Like, I don't know how to use Photoshop or Illustrator or anything like that, and I don't know how to do renderings and things like that myself, but I take the client's vision. So they might have a Pinterest board or just a bunch of saved Instagram posts or TikTok videos or things they might want to do DIY. And I help them narrow down what they want, which might be like color palette, floral selection, types of vessels, down to like the linen colors and napkin colors, paper textures and things like that. And I help them narrow down what their overall vibe is going to be. And then I find and help them select vendors that will help them execute and bring their vision to life. This is very different from the planning part in the sense that it is very creative. There's a lot of planners that can do both really well, and I think when you do both really well, you can really call yourself a planner. There might be some more creative people who kind of start doing the logistics and planning just because it's part of the job, but they are two very different elements of the planning process. So the last thing is, of course, execution of the actual day or weekend. It really depends on what the client needs from me. So sometimes clients book me for the whole weekend because they need help with the rehearsal dinner, welcome drinks, the day of the wedding, after party, farewell brunch. It really just depends what they need. Sometimes if it's just the wedding day, then of course I run the rehearsal. But really that whole week, I really don't want to have the clients worry about much except just like buttoning up little things, making sure all the things that we bought, they have at their home are brought to the venue and things like that. Outside of that, I really want them to be relaxed and just focus on their family and friends and just really have a good time. No matter how much we plan, there's always issues that come up. That's just the name of the game in planning. My job and my team's job is to really solve any of those problems that come out of the woodwork, because no matter how much you communicate sometimes to vendors or to people, there's just something that always falls through the cracks, and it's just because everyone's really busy and there's just a lot of details and everyone's just working on so many weddings, especially when it's busy season. So that's just kind of how it is, and we have learned to roll with the punches and just to make sure that the client is just really not privy to those things unless they really need to be. Then in which case, then I will of course tell them about whatever issues came up and then figure out how to solve that problem. But usually a lot of times the clients don't even know what went wrong during setup or things that we had to adjust based on things that happened. And then outside of the setup and making sure, outside of addressing any problems that might arise, we are also responsible for keeping the timeline on track, making sure from getting ready to the pre-ceremony photos, to first look, to family photos, to the ceremony, cocktail hour, dinner service, speeches, etc., stays on track, because a lot of times you have a time limit at the venue that you have to adhere to. You want to make sure you stay on track so you get enough dancing at the end, etc. So that's a big part of the job, is to create a timeline that works and it is realistic. You add in buffer for anything that might come up as well. Of course, there's a little bit of flexibility and it remains fluid in general, but with experience, I think you just learn how to roll with things that might come up. So those are the 4 main things that I feel like I help clients with when they book me. Of course, there's like the nitty-gritty part of it where I provide like Google documents and spreadsheets so they can like budget, do vendor research, and we collaborate on ideas and things like that. And then that's all of it. But I kind of wanted to just give a top line overview of how a client should feel when they book a full planner. And it really is, they should feel supported, they should feel less stressed, they should feel a little bit more sane than if they were doing it by themselves. And of course, they should find that it saves them time and they should see the value in what the planner does for them. Things I don't do as a planner, I don't make decisions for my clients. I give them all of the information that I know. I try to be as transparent as possible, as thorough as possible. Of course, I'm not perfect, but I try to be as thorough as possible with all the information I give them so that they can make the most informed decisions as possible. But I don't make the actual decisions for my clients. I will make recommendations based on my experience, but at the end of the day, the onus is on the client to make the decisions for what they want to do at their wedding. I'm also not going to be available at all hours of the day. I have, my working office hours. Of course, as the event date gets closer and closer, I'm a little bit more available, and I'm usually never not reachable unless I'm really going on vacation or something like that, at which point I'll always let the client know. I do have boundaries that I set, and I think it's really healthy to set those boundaries as a planner because that relationship can get really fraught really quickly. And I feel like with the boundaries, it's really helpful that they understand your systems. They usually really respect it whenever I tell them. And it works both ways. If something's not working for them, I always ask them to please tell me so that we can correct it so that everyone is comfortable with the workflow. So how do you know if you should hire a planner? That's not really a question that I can answer for you, but if you do want to hire a planner, you might be really overwhelmed with the idea of planning everything from beginning to end. You might have a really busy job. You might not be able to spend the time to plan the wedding. Planning a wedding typically takes, I would say, if you don't really have experience, anywhere from 200 to 250, 300 plus hours, which is a lot of time, even if it's spread out over the year. The good news is there's a wide range of options, especially in markets like LA or New York, just any big city. There's a lot of different planners that you can choose from. But what I would recommend is definitely interview the ones that speak to you, not just based on pricing, but more about their vibe and if you think they'll be a good fit, because they're going to be with you every step of the way from beginning to end. A lot of times it's almost, about a year or 8 months to 12 months. I would really take the time to find the right person for you, because it's not just about planning it, but it's really about how this person is going to help you and make you feel throughout the process. And I have unfortunately heard horror stories or like not so great stories about friends or like just people I know that just didn't really have a great experience with their planners. It's kind of because they didn't do their due diligence to hire the right person. If you are confident that you can plan the wedding yourselves because you're super organized, or you just have the support of friends and family or people who've done it before, that's really great. I would definitely recommend or suggest having either a day or month of coordinator to just help you tie up all the loose ends at the end, and so you don't have to worry about anything on your big day. That's something I definitely recommend to anyone that I speak to. I hope that gave you a pretty good idea of what a wedding planner does. At least that's what you would get if you booked my full planning and design package, and I imagine a lot of planners out there are pretty similar to what I offer. Thank you so much for watching, and watch out for my next video where I will talk about the difference between a planner and a coordinator, because there definitely are differences. It will help you decide which one you might want to hire. Thank you for watching this video, and if you like what you see, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content.